Good evening, everybody. Little change of scenery for you tonight, little change of background. I'm at my office in Saugus, Massachusetts. Just did a quick reel on Instagram. Thanking everybody, man. It's been such a whirlwind, right? Such a blessing to have people support me and wear clothing with my name on it. Such a blessing, such an honor, so humbling, right? So I just wanted to thank everybody tonight. I wanted to start this video by saying thank you to everybody that's tuning in, that takes the time to listen to what I have to say. I mean, it's really a humbling experience, right? Because there's only a few people I like to listen to, and I think it's earth shattering that people want to hear what I have to say to me, because my experiences are so subjective and I just lived them every day thinking they wouldn't be anything. But now that, I've gotten out and wanted to tell my story, a lot of people are listening with rapt attention. So that's pretty humbling to me. So somebody had an idea last night. I went live on YouTube. I went live on Instagram for a minute, live on TikTok, and they wanted me to talk about the prisons that I had been at, right? So I always talk about that I've been at 12 different prisons. So to run you down this list of prisons I've been at, it's more than 12. So I'll take you on this little trip with me. I started out at Wyatt Detention Facility in Rhode Island. From Wyatt, I got transferred to Plymouth after there was a little bit of a riot, and we were kind of at fault for that. After Plymouth, I got sentenced in federal court. And then I got airlifted to Leavenworth Penitentiary. Went to Leavenworth Penitentiary, stayed there for 4 years, 5 years. From Leavenworth, I went to Petersburg, Virginia. Not really a good move for me. I got a disciplinary transfer there for getting into a fight. Back to the penitentiary, went to Lee County Penitentiary. And in between Lee County, I went and I had my first trip at Atlanta Penitentiary. It was a holdover, brutal, the brutalest place in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So after I went to Lee County Penitentiary, I got a transfer to a lower security prison. I went to a medium, I went to Phaeton. And in that time, I had to go through Brooklyn, I had to go to Atlanta. Nightmare getting there, but I finally did make it to Phaeton, New Jersey. And after Phaeton, New Jersey, I got transferred to a lower security prison. I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey. So from Fort Dix, New Jersey, which great. The best thing about the transfer from Phaeton to Fort Dix, well, they were right down the street from each other. Usually when you go on a transfer, you get on a plane, you get on a bus, you stay at this place, you stay at that place. You don't have anything, as I've explained before. But from going from Phaeton, New Jersey to Fort Dix, New Jersey, it was a 2-hour bus ride. You were there the same day. It was the best transfer ever. The joint, I hated it. I didn't like Fort Dix at all. Too lively for me. I like quiet, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But from Fort Dix, I was under an investigation for like a year and a half in the hole as time progressed there. And then I got transferred to a higher security prison, which is McKean, Pennsylvania. So, and then I had to go through Brooklyn to get to McKean, and Brooklyn was always a nightmare. One of the worst stops, right? I always say that Atlanta's the worst stop. Brooklyn, probably the second worst stop. But I had a hold over there, and I ran into a guy named Johnny Burke, who was doing state time. And he ended up being a very good friend of mine. I met him on an airlift before going to Atlanta. He was going to testify for Ronnie One-Arm. He's a great guy, Johnny Burke. Don't mistake that word, testify. He went to testify for his friend against the government. His name was Johnny Burke. I did a great time with him. He took care of me so much in Brooklyn that it was only the one time that I ever went to Brooklyn that I wish I stayed longer, because he got me in his block, got me in a good cell. We got hooked up. He had everything over there dialed in. And I love Johnny Burke. I did a nice little stint of time with him over in Brooklyn. But I ended up going to McKean from there. So McKean was a higher security. That's where I met Kevin McTaggart. And I want you to take a look at Kevin McTaggart. His case was on the west side of Cleveland. Sweetheart of a guy. I still talk to him to this day. I went to jail in 1996. Did 27 years, right? Kevin went to jail in 1986. And he's still in prison today. We have to find a way to get Kev out of prison. This is, if we've done anything on this venue, let's try to get Kevin McTaggart out of prison. Sweetheart of a guy, great guy, still contacts me. I mean, can you imagine the perspective that I have when a guy was in prison 10 years before I even thought about going to prison, and he calls me on the phone and I hear the telephone recording, the same recording I used to hear on the other end when I was calling people. And man, it almost brings tears to my eyes. This guy is still calling. He's like 65 years old, still calling me from prison. And, it's heartbreaking. And, shout out to Kevin McTaggart, just a stand-up dude, stellar dude, been in prison forever. And he's still got a smile on his face every day. I love this guy. I wish we could do something to get Kevin McTaggart, west side of Cleveland. Look it up. Google it. I don't know what comes up if you Google it. But anyway, so from McKean, I left Kevin. So from McKean, I went to Devens to get my hip done. And Devens was pretty cool, right? Because it's right in Boston. It's, in the metro area of Boston anyway. A little on the suburb side. It's in Ayer, Massachusetts. But, the closest I've been to Boston, right, is what I'm trying to say. And when I was driving down the Mass Pike, and I was driving in the areas of Boston, I got like knots in my stomach. I just wanted to be home. Like, it was the first time in a long time where I had been that close to Boston. And, my urge was to say, like, hey, man, can you take a ride by my house? Can you go through the Sumner Tunnel? Go here, take a left, take a right. I just wanted to see, like, all of Boston, like, and it was, we drove straight to the jail, man, and I was close. I was close to Boston. I was like as close to home as I've ever been since I got arrested. And, I made a lot of good connections in Devens, a lot of good friends, I think staff and inmates alike. They had a lot of pedophiles there. They had, it's just a lot of weird people there. And, the staff kind of liked me. They knew about my case. They knew about me. My reputation kind of preceded me when I got there, so I had a really good rapport with everybody. I worked there. I was a blood spill orderly. I was an orderly there. I was doing all the floors there. I had my own room. It was a really, really cool setup. It was the first time that I was ever in prison where I was actually in a place where, it was quiet. It was a hospital floor. So I kind of really liked Devens, and I made some, really good connections with, some staff members there were so great, professionals, of course, but they were just so great with me. I'm so grateful for them. It was the first time in my bid where I had really started connecting with staff and actually, like working and, doing floors and, coordinating with the people in the prisons that, they wanted this stuff done. And I remember I was on my hands and knees doing things. I was like trying to get all the, all the like wax off the baseboards, and I made the floors perfect. I got into it, I zoned out. And, Devens was a really, really cool stop for me. I'm really grateful for those people in Devens, and I kind of wanted to stay at Devens, but the investigators of Devens, I don't know if I've ever talked about this, the first time I'll probably ever talk about it, and I'm not going to mention no names, but the investigators at Devens wrote a 4 or 5 page memorandum on me, said that I was too close to female staff there. And that's something they do if they want to transfer you. And I was close to female staff. I was close to some of the female staff members that worked there. But, I mean, I was a good worker, and they were professionals. They never did anything out of line. And, it's just unfortunate for them because they worked there, right? I'm a guy coming through there. And they try to stick up for me. They wanted me to stay at the hospital, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just moving out of here. And I went to whole nother part of the prison. I moved out of the hospital at one point in time. And I was like, I just didn't want to bring no heat to them. And they were like, don't worry, you don't have to move. And I'm like, listen, you know what? I'm not going to make your life hard here. Come on, you know what I'm saying? And they really respected that. And I was like, you know what, man, that was like, nobody would ever do that. Everybody would have fought tooth and nail to stay at the hospital. But I just moved out on my own accord because I just thought it was the right thing to do. I thought it was the stand-up kind of thing to do, and they did too. And that just their reception of that, like the way that they received that and the way that they perceived it was enough to make me say, like, hey, I did the absolute right thing. It was a hard thing to do. It was an uncomfortable thing to do. But I just want to, they know who they are too. There were some female staff members there that were really cool with me, man, and I really appreciate them. And there were some male staff members there that were, cool with me as well. And there were some male staff members there that were pretty jealous of me, and I don't know why. I was an inmate, you know what I mean? So just weird dynamic, weird cop, bad guy type dynamic. But hey, what are you going to do? That's life sometimes. So from Devens, I got a good recommendation from a female staff member that I should be moved to Danbury Low, and I got Danbury Low, and I was there pretty quickly too, so that was good. And I like Danbury. Danbury was great. It was in Connecticut. When I got there, it was a women's prison. No, I wasn't there when it was a women's prison, but they made it a men's prison, and I got there, and there was just everybody from every jail that I knew from before that was local, like our guys. New York, Connecticut, Vermont, Massachusetts. They were all together, all these good guys. And I was like, yo, this is the best thing. It was a great joint. I ate good there. I lived good there, and then, it's just like everything else. Things change, right? So from Danbury, the greatest thing that ever happened to me in Danbury is the warden changed and the case manager changed and the unit manager, I should say, changed. And I got a transfer to a camp. It was my time. I did everything right to get to a camp. Then I got a furlough to go to a camp. So I went on my own. It's called a transfer furlough, and they're very seldom ever given. I mean, everybody goes to a camp and they say, like, I'm going to get a furlough. I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to go on a bus. They never grant them, ever. They never do it. They got the discretion to do whatever they want. It just so happened that when I was going to a camp, the new warden and the new unit manager said, if you guys are going to camps, you can walk away from a camp. Why should we pay to transfer you? You guys are going to go yourself on a bus. And it's like it's like music to every inmate's ear, you know what I'm saying? So I ended up catching it good. I ended up catching it, like 10, 12 of us went, staggered, and then they ended up stopping them, and there was 8 or 9 after me that were supposed to come that didn't. So I just caught it at the very right time, and I ended up having an amazing, amazing 18 hours. And that right there, that after 21 and a half years, when I had that furlough, right, and I got to hang out with my wife at the time, and it was just like I was reborn, right? So it was just what I needed right at the right time. When I got to the camp, it was amazing. Some of you guys have seen the shorts here. I snuck out, went to the hotel, every chance I could. And it was pretty cool. It was nice. And then we were under investigation for some things. And hey, you know what? I got transferred back to a low. So I went to Elkton, Ohio from there, a low security institution. And I met some of the best people and some of the worst, some of the most, like, if you could, like, engineer, like, trash, genetic human trash, and put it somewhere, it all went to Elkton. But there was a handful of great guys that were there that I met that I don't like to mention their names. They don't like their names mentioned. But it's one person that I met over there that was a lawyer, was an amazing person. Another was a politician. They were some of the greatest people from Ohio, some of the greatest people I ever met in prison. I have connections with them now that, I mean, they're just, like just with the whole, I could group all my other friends. They've made life amazing for me. And they gave me opportunity that nobody would ever give me that I've never ever received in my life. And they are just some of the greatest people. I hated Elkton, Ohio. It was one of the worst joints I was ever at. But I'm so grateful for it because I met some great people there. And, I'm grateful for them, man. So from Elkton, Ohio, COVID. And you've seen my video on COVID. Horrible, horrendous time in prison. Terrible, the worst ever. But I went to the worst joint and had the worst time, right? But I met the best people. And after that, I went to one of the best jails I was ever at in my life, Berlin Camp. I went there and there was 20 people there. I walked into a closet that they had that was unopened packages of T-shirts, sneakers. People had just left, right? They all got this mass expulsion because, this mass release because of COVID hit. And I got all these brand new things. I met some great people, and it was quiet, and I relaxed. And it was just, some of these things, and I would just go outside. So we're right across from Mount Washington. It's the most majestic view you could ever have. And I had some of the best intimate times with myself on that compound, on that mountain, just thinking to myself how at that point, when I was in Elkton, Ohio, and I was on transfer in Oklahoma City, for the first time in my life, I legitimately thought that taking my own life would be a viable option. It was one of the only times I've ever felt like that in my life, in prison and life, during COVID. And I always say that the blessing always initially comes disguised as a curse. And that's why I always say, if you just hang on for one more day, you're going to have your day. You just got to keep hanging on. Because it happened right before my very eyes. This was the beginning of it. This was the turning point of like where I am today. That was the turning point of where that process really began to take traction and really dig in for me. Because I had come from some of the worst times in prison, but then I went to like the best time. It was like I was free. It was amazing. My spirit was free. I really began to study Spanish, like really like hard. And I really started to concentrate, focus on studying Spanish. I began to really dig into my workouts, man, and just, when everybody was sleeping, I just thrived on like, I have to suffer through this. But it was a suffering insofar as just workouts. But my spirit soared. And I knew that like I would walk around the track like sometimes with tears in my eyes because I knew the end was coming. I knew it was near. Like I could really feel it, and I could really like wrap my hands around it. Because before it was just a concept that like everybody else leaves, you got to leave. You don't have a life sentence. You're going to leave at some point in time. You're not going to leave. You're going to die. You're going to live. You're going to be all right. You're going to be okay. You'll be 60, whatever. You'll be okay. But this is when it really started. I could really see it. Like when they talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, this was the light at the end of the tunnel. I could see it. It was tangible. Man, it was like it took a hold of my heart, just that concept of it, and it just like catapulted me to where I am today. And it was the most amazing feeling that I've ever had in my whole life. And I used to think about the people that didn't make it and the people that, I know there had to be people that committed suicide during this horrible time in prison during coronavirus, and they just locked you in cells. Like, and I'm not the guy to come on here and say, hey, listen, these people are horrible. They got something against me. Not at all. All people were doing was what they were told, right? But individuals suffered during that time. I was one of them. And I contemplated suicide. But I had come to a whole point in my life where I walked around the track with tears in my eyes because I knew it was coming. I knew it. And then, I started to get, wait a minute, hold on. I started to get news that, wait a minute, you might get another year off. Trump with the First Step Act. Now I'm eligible for the drug program, another year off. So right before my eyes, I was like in the middle of, wait a minute, you might be transferred here because you're going to be going to a camp to do your last year in the drug program. So now the thing that had taken hold and started to gain traction was, wait a minute, I got to hurry up and get to this next jail so I can get the whole full 9 months of this drug program to get credit. Like I had to hurry up to get there. So like that, and I just embraced it. Like I embraced the experience of being incarcerated because I knew that it was going to fly by, right? It went by slow, right? It goes by slow, but I just know like these things, they take on a life of their own. I've just did 26 years in prison, and like I'm saying to myself, how do they do it? Now I got 1 year left, and I just knew it was going to fly by. So what I try to do is just feel it, right? Feel like, just the deprivation, just to feel it. To feel the horrible feelings of it, because I wanted to feel that, because I knew at one point in time, real soon down the road, I was going to have to put those feelings side by side with feelings of elation, because I was getting out, and I was probably in the best shape of my life, right? And I still try to stay in the best shape of my life every single day, because I want to enjoy my life, right? Every single second of every single day. So my fitness regime has always been at the forefront of what I do and who I am, and I just knew I'm going to make this. It's good. I'm going to sprint this last motherfucking mile. That's the way I felt about it. So I ended up getting transferred to Lewisburg camp, going to the drug program. And, and when I got there, And, I had my cats, and I could tell the story of the cats another day, but, I got there and it was just, everything started to fall into place. And I knew that this whole shift of me living this pro-social life had many benefits to it. And the many benefits were, when I first walked in the door there, the case manager said to me, "Oh, I just want you to know that you're the first person we've ever had a meeting about before they came to the drug program." And I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting, right? And then the doctor, the whole psychologist for the whole program, called me to her office and said, "Hey, does this name look familiar?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, it looks familiar. It's a common name." She goes, "You worked for my husband at Berlin camp. And he said you were a very hard worker and very respectful." And in that very moment, I knew the power of living a pro-social life and working hard and doing the right thing, when nobody's looking. Because you know what? Even when nobody's looking, somebody sees you. And somebody gives a report to somebody else. And you reap the benefits. And I did. And all the way up until the day I did the drug program. It was difficult sometimes. It was the best thing that happened to me because this drug program was actually the curriculum, parts of it, for the recovery coach that I'm doing now. And I've had those trainings. And I'm connecting with other people. And it's just the whole thing, everything has come full circle. And it come full circle that I'm living it now. And people see that, this is the extension of it. But there were times when I didn't, that I had bad days and times that I wanted to, kill myself. I thought it was a viable option. That's why I always say that you just have to hang in for one day. And I always say that I did 10,000 days. Your time's going to be shorter. But so that's my odyssey through the federal system. And when I got out, I went to the Coolidge House. And the Coolidge House is where, I guess, this story of me being in this office really begins and really starts taking traction, because that's where I come up with my brand, right? I always knew about 27 straight. I said, I'm going to be doing this when I did the calculations. But then in the halfway house, when I had time and I was sitting with my pen and my paper and my binder, and this really started to take place. But that's it for this video. We're going to leave it at that for tonight. And I'm just really so grateful for everybody that follows me, that, supports me. And please share this channel, right? Because somebody might need this. Somebody might need to know that if you hang off on one more day, your day is going to come. One of your friends might need that. So share this channel, share this content. And, I appreciate the support. Thank you to everybody so much. And this was a pretty good episode, man. I really felt, just talking about some of this stuff brought me to a whole nother topic. So it's pretty cool, man. And I really just appreciate everybody. It's just another great night, another blessed day in my life. And you're a part of it.